In 1997, the death of a princess and her lover rocked the world. 10 years later, it led to the longest, most expensive and most sensational inquest in British legal history. Hundreds of witnesses were called. There were arguments, lies, tears and accusations, as intimate details of their private lives were dissected on the world stage. Yet before the court case had even begun, the media had already decided what the verdict should be. However, in Britain and around the world, millions of ordinary people were convinced, and after the inquest still are convinced, that the deaths of Princess Diana and Dodi Fayed were no accident.
I think it's murder.
Murder.
It was murder.
For me, I think it was a murder. Murder.
In my opinion, there can be no doubt that she was actually murdered.
When the woman left a note saying, FYI, if I'm dead, here's how it's gonna happen, and then it happens exactly like that, I think someone should pay attention.
I mean, I just know our initial reaction was, well, they finally killed her, because we're used to it.
I think it was murder.
If you go to a bar, you'll find 3 people who go, ooh, but the royals did it, didn't they?
Oh, of course Diana was bumped off. She knew she was going to be bumped off.
I wasn't sure if Diana's death was an accident or murder, but I suspected a cover-up by the British establishment, an elaborate exercise in burying the truth rather than uncovering it. I suspected a conspiracy, but this isn't just the old story about a conspiracy before the crash. It's about a conspiracy after the crash.
We all know that the biggest scandals are always the cover-ups. I mean, it isn't the Watergate, it's not the break-in, it's the cover-up which is the big scandal.
When you have the head of the British security services calmly announcing we have never killed anybody in the last 50 years, I laughed out loud. What's the point of them then? I didn't believe it. And so if you don't believe that, where does that leave the rest of the establishment evidence?
I decided to watch and wait, then tell the story that the press and TV news wouldn't tell. The result is a documentary that reveals what really happened during those 6 months in the Royal Courts of Justice. It is The Inquest of the Inquest. The royal family likes to present itself as part of a benign and freedom-loving tradition in films such as The King's Speech. As you will have gathered by now, this film is the antidote to The King's Speech. The inquest was held in the royal family's own court, so is it any wonder that the coroner, the royal representative in charge, decided that the key royal suspects need not even appear at the inquest to be questioned?
Right from the inquest's first day, I thought, what if this woman's name had been Diana Smith, and she'd written in a note which had been subsequently unveiled, my husband Charles Smith wants me to die in a car accident. And subsequently she did. In any other family or in any other country, surely Charles Smith would have been called to the witness stand at the inquest into his wife's death.
Every word you hear from the courtroom has been meticulously reconstructed just as it happened. I also had my own undercover reporter in the press tent, Richard Wiseman, listening to the journalists' conversations. Every word you hear them say was noted down exactly and precisely timed and dated.
I thought when we started that I had about a fortnight before somebody tripped over my notes and realised that I actually wasn't making notes on the inquest, I was making notes on what the other journalists were saying to each other. And the longer it went on, the more I thought, I can't believe I'm getting away with this.
For once, a reporter was doing the dirty on his colleagues, so the world could learn how they only reported one side of the story, ignoring anything that didn't fit their pre-written script.
This looks like 6 months of my life and I'm not going to get back. An absolute fucking nightmare, isn't it? There's a road accident, for Christ's sake, get over it.
Young girls identify with the person who becomes the consort of the king. The big idea of being a princess and becoming queen is a fantasy. There are fairy stories about it. There's a constant fantasy for little girls.
Diana dreamed of becoming a princess too, but unfortunately for her, when her fairy tale fantasy came true, the reality was not a dream, it was a nightmare.
The royal family, it really is true, are much more, at least in that generation, are much more interested in animals than they are in human beings.
The royals are not a sentimental bunch and treat their wives like farmers treat cattle. They're not big on romance. They're very big on breeding.
And I suppose in love.
Of course.
Whatever in love means.
Whatever in love means. Perhaps that was Diana's first intimation that this would be a loveless marriage.
First of all, Mr. Al-Fayed, you have been saying for years that you believe your son was not the victim of an accident, that when he was with Lady Di, the royal family was so upset with her dating him. The fact that he was Muslim, they had him bumped off. In other words, this was a hit, a murder, and not an accident.
Absolutely. It's a terrorist murder.
Okay.
It's not a murder, it's a slaughter of those bloody racist royal family.
You think Prince Philip is so smart that he could mastermind all of this and orchestrate it?
Yeah, he's vicious. Yeah, of course. You think a guy like that will accept? My son, different religion, different nationality.